playing. Welcome, everybody. It's August 3rd. Today is the 26th time we're meeting to talk about the Mandel upgrade. Quick recap. We've got, last week we checked in on Mandel. RC3 was not yet released at that time. We were aiming for towards the end of the week, so we'll get an update there today. Dune 1.0 RC1 had been released. Looking for some feedback from developers who are using it. Testing is still in progress. The focus for this past week was to get the CDT testing and get contracts activated on the on Jungle, or the contracts deployed onto Jungle. We've been working on getting Kylin in a better testing state. We're working on a bot to enable a Faucet, essentially. So we do have more news to share there, more progress there. And last week we were looking for feedback on the 3.1 upgrade guide, which has now been published. So yeah, lots of progress has been made in the last week. Let's go a little deeper into each of these topics. We can start with Mandel software update. Can we get an update from ENF on how that's going?
Absolutely. So a bit more progress to report there. So kudos to the team. Late last night, we got the last PR that we believe needs to be merged in for a final stable release. So we haven't discussed the details of next steps yet today, but what I anticipate transpiring is that we bump that version today, get some updated release notes out, and plan to proceed moving forward from there. So all systems look to be a go, and really excited about that.
So that's going to be RC3 or final?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Yeah.
Great minds think alike.
The belief is that it is final. So that's what we'd like to move forward with. But I can provide an update if there's any concerns. This took place at basically 7 hours ago. So I do need to check with the team just to make sure that they feel fully comfortable. But the tone of it sounded like we're final. So that's how I'd like to present it today, and we can update as needed.
Wouldn't we call it RC3, and then after it's been tested for a week or two on Jungle 4, then we just rename it final?
Yeah, I'm fine with that process. I've not been part of the RC release process going to final just yet. So that's probably the more intelligent way to voice it, Ted. Thank you.
Because you can't be sure it's final until it's final.
Right.
Until we make sure there's no bugs in it. Okay. So RC3 release is imminent. Will likely become final, assuming no issues found on Jungle. Is that captured accurately?
I think that's fair to say. Yep.
All right. Anything else to add?
I think that's it for now. We've not seen anything super critical come in terms of any bugs across the other repos, but we will continue to monitor.
Great. Good progress. So we're close. We're close. Okay. I'm guessing there's nothing new to report on Dune 1.0 unless I'm not sure if anyone has any feedback to share based if they've been playing with it. Anything they want to share here, or if maybe we've received any responses to any of the surveys. I don't see Randall on here, and I didn't get any news from him offline. So I'm assuming no new feedback there. We'll give a moment in case anyone wants to chime in. All right. Testing on Jungle 4. So as I said, the goal for this week is to get the contracts updated. There's an NSIG out. Just a moment ago, it was at 14 out of 15, but I heard Michael is in the process of, we got it.
And I haven't executed it yet.
You haven't executed. I don't have my Jungle wallets set up here. So if someone wants to do the honor of executing it live on the air here.
Sure, I'll go ahead and run through them and execute them, but just be on the lookout if we break anything.
Or maybe not. Maybe it's not good to do it now when we're on a call.
Maybe
leave it to you.
wait for Biden.
Cool.
That was why I left it not executed. But
Yeah.
hey, I'm all for smashing the buttons.
Yeah.
Jungle is there for breaking, right? That's the
The jungle way.
But so good progress though. So we're just an execution away from deploying the contracts onto Jungle. Obviously, we hadn't had an opportunity to test them yet, so we'll continue to make that a priority for this week. Is there anything else that we want to be? I'm guessing now with RC3 coming out, that's going to be another priority for testing. Make sure we get everyone updates to RC3. Anything else? We're going to deploy smart contracts or system contracts. Anything else?
I had relayed to some of the other networks to try to test the process, although I don't know, it may still be a few more weeks before we're there, but I did at least relay out to some of the other networks to try.
Cool. So we'll have other flavors of EOSIO
soon.
Okay. And when it comes to CDT, is there anything in particular we need to be doing to put that through its paces? That's more of a smart contract developer's task, whereas contracts is a BP task. Is that essentially correct?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, BPs may use CDT to verify contracts or whatever, but I mean, in my opinion, obviously I'm not the dev, but most of the time they see differences, as it's evolved. Like, I think there was some size difference in a couple of the versions and things like that. But yeah, I mean, I think it either compiles or it doesn't.
Okay. So we'll keep testing. All right. On track there. Testnet, Kylin. We made some progress there. I think you may have seen if you're following in the Mandel chat or in the Kylin chat. I'm going to update this with the details too. It's not there yet. But Denny put together a handy little backend tool that anyone can access. You don't need a Kylin account to be able to create a Kylin account and issue yourself some tokens. You just call this little backend tool, and away you go. Maybe I'll share it on the screen here for those who haven't seen it yet.
Okay, with a little run for its money a couple hours back, and it worked great.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I tested it out myself. Seems to be working. So you can generate a key if you don't have one already, just by hitting that button there, and you'll get a public and private key. You can
save it because that may be the last chance you get.
Right. Then you can create an account. Anyway,
thank God for terminal history. Anyway, sorry.
I won't go through the note. Basically, put in a key, put in an account, execute it, and it's going to instantly create an account for you, and then you can issue yourself 100 tokens at a time with this call here.
The one cool piece about it is it's a smart contract feature or action, I guess, technical, but you can trigger it via just the smart contract level as well. Obviously, right. For ease of use, that's where that front or the back end, whatever comes in, but it is actually just a raw smart contract. So if you already have an account or if you have a process, you could possibly use it.
So yeah, you do need a Kylin account to interact directly with the smart contract. So So if you don't have an account, you can get around that catch-22 of needing an account to create an account. if you have an account, if you're comfortable interacting with the smart contract, you can do it direct with the smart contract. The other great thing is it's super easy for us to, now we can take the smart contract and back end. And that's one thing Denny will work on is, why don't we use this on other test nets? We can put it on Jungle. We can put it on other flavors of EOSIO. So it's been made fairly general purpose.
Holler at me. We can throw it all over the place. Holler at me.
There you go. Yeah, you just got to load up the smart contract with some tokens. So whoever has kind of the access to all the tokens can load up that account with the tokens, and now you got a faucet. So that's that. Any questions or anything to add on the faucet? Next step is going to be getting power up updated on Kylin. So we're working through what exactly needs to be done to get power up updated. Looking back through what we did on mainnet, I'm pretty sure that we were the ones who put up that MSIG. So we're going to just repeat what we did there on Kylin. We also made, so last week I shared a draft of the upgrade guide. It's now been published on the ENF blog, and we've already started passing it around. I know that the EOS Support guys have published the survey for us too. So you can find the survey right in there. We got some feedback. We added the questions that you had suggested, Ross. Virginia, I got feedback that your feedback was very helpful from Andrew. So thank you for your help on the edit there.
Sure, my pleasure.
And so yeah, it looks like things are good. We did get some feedback as now that we're spreading the word more and sharing the timelines, sharing the kind of what you got to do. We've been hearing there are some exchanges still running the depreciated V1 history. I mentioned last week, I believe, that there's also some BPs still running that, which could be a risk for the September 21st date. If the exchanges that are running V1 are going to have to kind of re-architect their processes to find another history solution. We're suggesting that they use the state history as an alternative. But so far, no pushback in particular on the date, but there is some complaints that, we were using that V1 history. That's going to be a challenge.
There was somebody in the channel this morning, actually, that I was talking to and trying V1 history, state history, confusion, layer 1, layer 2s. So yeah, I mean, it's starting to percolate its way out there, but I don't know if EOS itself has a preferred recommended exchange integration. I was relaying a few I knew of. I know there's trace history, there's state history. It sounds like the recommended path is state history, not.
Let me make sure I got
API.
that right. Trace, is the one that we're suggesting. That was a recommendation from Matthew.
Correct. And I'm not as familiar with it, but I know it's a little more manual and whatever, but that may be getting crossed up as state history as well for obvious reasons, it sounds like. And both are possible, but there's a couple different ways to do it. Anyway, I know on all of the different EOSIO chains, they kind of deal with that same thing of how to monitor the chain. So that's the same thing. Anyway,
so based on my understanding, Bart built trace history specifically for an exchanges years back. So it's suited for the needs of the exchanges. I'm not sure. We're double checking to make sure that is mentioned here as a resource.
Do you have any examples or use cases? I haven't had a chance to tear through it, but that seemed to be what the person was kind of looking for, which that may be the raw documentation, but like example more than just syntax. But anyway, that may be some of the burden we're trying to overcome because they're starting to trickle in, which is good. But I don't have a lot of experience with it, so I can answer V2 and Hyperion and state history and all of that. But yeah, trace API and even chronicle and stuff like that. Anyway, something to think about as we get more of the exchanges coming in.
What kind of examples? Anything I could call to action I can put out there to create an example besides this documentation, or
I can't, because I'm not really the dev. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me anyway at some points, but there was definitely some confusion. He was from an exchange. I don't know which exchange, but he was coming in and he was dealing with, hey, we use V1. Yeah, not anymore. You don't. So, yeah. And then Hyperion and state history. And then Matthew actually reminded, of trace API. So anyway, point is even at least myself, I'm a little confused on it, but some direct guidance or, there are some people that kind of specialize in some of those things, but I just noticed that at 4 a.m. in the morning and did my best to try to help.
Right.
And for my tinkering with Trace API, it takes a little finagling. You have to kind of hard code what contracts and ABIs. It ain't plug and play.
Does anyone have any experience? What would it take for an exchange? I guess it depends on the processes.
Corvin, did you guys try to trace API?
Sorry again.
I was just curious. I know you really stress tested trying to stream data out of the chain. Did y'all ever try the trace API for any of y'all's contracts?
No. It's enabled for our API nodes, but we aren't using it.
Well, the trace API is a little different, but yeah, if you're not using it, you kind of got to configure what contracts and provided APIs ABIs. So it's not like state history where you just kind of ingest and digest. But anyway, it's a little different beast. I think Gray Mass is probably some of the guru in it. I just thought maybe you might try
heavily using it.
And then a few exchanges, but if that's going to be our recommended path, I don't know, maybe some more information about it, because the first one that trickled in, he was definitely confused.
Okay. So I've asked Andrew, who wrote our upgrade guide, to take a second look at the recommendations we've outlined in that article to make sure trace is covered as the recommendation. We'll make sure that that we make the recommendation useful.
You can only try so much, but I know Matthew's a big technical writer, so you can only lead a horse to water. But I can at least relay there was definitely an exchange running V1 that was struggling with what to do now.
Right. So, do we have? I don't know if it's too soon to tell how much of a risk this is to the timelines right at this time. Maybe just something we keep monitoring. The survey is out, so we should hopefully start to get some more responses from people. Some of the questions are like, what types of APIs do you require? What are you currently using? So that should help inform us more on how many people are in this state. And we'll make sure that as we approach the deadline, maybe we follow up with everybody and get their latest status update. And we'll have to factor that into our decision when we have our go, no go call for the activation on September 21st. But for now, I think we should maintain 21st as our target date.
Daniel, you obviously saw my message. If you could put our snapshot server up there as well. I don't know if it's possible to edit the article again, but the other one is more of a question to everyone here. I'm putting up a blocks log archive. Even when it's compressed, it's going to be like over 1 terabyte, I think. It's compressing now. Do you think it's valuable to have that available to everybody? I suppose we've got our snapshots, but, should we be serving a blocks log, for them to do restoration?
From the aspect of just in general as services to the network, yes. I think a lot of them do try to sync it, but it'd be nice if you could say, hey, there's an easier way.
Yeah, to sync it'll take a while. Right? Yeah, I'm just saying for this. Has anybody got any? I know we often say that unless you replay something yourself, you're never sure, etc., etc. Maybe. I mean, I'm going to host it there, and I don't know if we should be encouraging people that had done a complete replay from version 2.1 that needed to go and do a complete replay to go back onto the Mandel track. It'll be available for them.
I forgot how painful that rollback was because you can't use that log anymore. And
but
I had
you
to
can use it. You
another
can
one.
use it if you upgraded and went back, but if you went from scratch,
correct.
It doesn't.
There's a lot of people on 2.1. I mean, I'm floored that, I'm not floored, but there's a lot of people that are going to get caught by that. That's true. You either need to resync it or replay it.
Does anybody in the group here have an opinion on using a backed up block slug? Or at least saying, hey, don't worry.
I think there's value in offering it. Not everyone.
Absolutely.
Different people have different level of risk in their business that they want to. They're willing to trust a trusted BP to use their block slug. I think there are people who would use it.
Yeah.
I think probably as BPs should probably ideally
not
use their own, but
use
to each their own.
But not anybody else. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I mean, to be honest, you can replay the block log. In theory, if you replay the block log, it should go through and validate block by block by block. It's the same thing as sync and PDP, other than it's not coming from multiple sources.
It's not quite the same. It's not quite the same unless you add some additional options to your Node.js command line. Otherwise, it does not fully validate the blocks.
Oh, okay.
I just want to clarify that.
Would it do live validation or whatever? It does do live validation or whatever.
I'm not even sure it does live validation offhand. It definitely doesn't check things like transaction signatures. I don't recall if it even checks block signatures.
One question is when it goes to rejoin the chain and start talking to all those P2Ps, I assume if it was malformed or different, you would be at a different state and ultimately fork out, right? I mean, there's a lot that goes into that, but that's kind of the other thought on it is that once you do come back into the network, wouldn't the consensus catch if it were different than the real chain that you're now syncing to? Maybe not.
But the potential problem here would be something like, there's actually a couple things you could do, but an easy one to explain would be like if you somehow coaxed, a majority of the BPs to use a malicious log or something like that, then.
But you're at the same mercy of the P2P nodes that you're trying to sync to validate, right? I mean, in theory. So maybe another side conversation, but
no, I mean, because again, if you're syncing, you're doing full validation.
I agree.
If you're playing the log with the default options, you're not doing full validation. But there are command line options you can use that will, effectively not trust a block log. It will do full validation on it. So it is possible.
Matt, are you happy with hearing that there are other BPs that are serving up the archive block log for people to join quickly? I mean, does that make you happy, or do you think that's a bit of a problem?
I'm not prepared to make a conclusive statement on that on a recorded call.
I think he answered it by voicing his opinions and concerns.
There's certainly, if you don't sync from Genesis, there's certainly a different level of trust. But what everybody's risk level is different.
Yeah. Okay.
When if you're running those Swedish Debian files, who knows what you're getting anyway, right? If you're running somebody else's code, a lot of people do, go outside of the bounds. I think it's useful to offer that to people as an option. I definitely think it's. I didn't even realize the validation path was different. So nice, piece to help provide that as additional information. But if you don't, it's going to become harder and harder. And you know what it's like on some of these chains. There are no block 2, 3, 4, and 5s available out there. So
Yeah, I'll put it there. Hey, and I'll use it myself.
I'll grab a copy, and we're expanding out our stuff too. You saw our snapshot services are really kind of expanding out, and that's the next step. So I'm obviously a big fan.
Cool.
You just need to provide the information along the way. Anyway, sorry for a side diversion.
So anything there on that we should include in the, like, if we are going to be adding this as a resource to the article, is there any advice that we should add as extra information? Like, for example, these command line commands that you can make sure would.
I would say, maybe somewhere in, not obviously maybe the mainstream, because it may get more confusing. But if you're looking to validate the transactions and replay or dealing with it, providing that additional information and even the command line to pass it a different validation, I do think might be helpful as we kind of scope out what they keep asking. Then we can that makes sense, more of kind of this exchange, I don't know, recommendation and help guide, in my opinion. Sorry.
Do we have block log splitting in the latest Mandel release now or not? I mean, can't you then speed up the replaying speed by replaying in parallel from different blockades?
Oh, I don't know if it'll speed up like the replay. I'm not even sure how a replay works.
If you are able to replay in parallel from different blockades and then later be able to combine the block logs.
Can you replay in parallel? If you're running a full validation, I don't think you could replay in parallel, could you? You have to do full validation.
I think the strategy here would be you'd have to have a bunch of snapshots that you're going to use at different block heights, and then you have a block log that covers all of those slices. It doesn't have to be split. It can just be a one block log that's ref linked or something like that if you're doing it on the same box anyways. And then you would perform that. You'd perform the replay of each of those slices, and then you look at like we call it the integrity hash. You look at the integrity hash at the end of one and the beginning of the other and match them up. I mean, you could definitely do that. It's I don't think there's any like tooling out there to help automate that for you. I think you'd have to be pretty familiar with what you're doing. Or
just let it grind and do its natural validation. Right? Anyway, so the whole point of that was, yes, maybe some additional pointers and tips and whatever geared towards the exchanges with respect to the validation. Ross is providing a full block log. I'll rip on his connection and maybe we can offer it as well. I need a good copy. Anyway.
Okay. So I've asked already Andrew to draft up those changes, both the addition of these additional resources, and also just making sure that we've got the trace history recommendation covered and coherent. I'll circulate that among the group here once the draft is there, and then we can make sure. I'm not technical enough to provide any specific recommendations here in terms of steps to take. So maybe one of you can offer some guidance there, either directly as comments in the document or on this issue here. If you want to add any suggestions, that would be useful.
And thank you, Matt. That's great information. Always about the knowledge.
Beauty. What else? That covers the items that we've been tracking. Is there any other items we want to discuss?
I have one, but I'm pretty sure it's an off channel, but this may be the people to talk to about it. I saw, I think, a GitHub issue or something pull about stress testing. And of course, we've been kind of doing some testing on different networks. And I think some of the people may be on here or around here, but if there's some conversation about some heavier in smashing and testing, things we've learned, things we're doing, I'd love to chat with whoever might be interested in that, if that's something that people are beginning to talk about, which it kind of looked like. Anyway, I figured this might be a good place to put that out there. Catch me on Telegram, please.
Cool. Michael has stress testing insights to share. Is that the
If that seems to be, at the ENF level or OCI or wherever it was, there were some PRs on some of the GitHub that looked like that might be of interest. And it just happened to be something that we're actively working on smashing. So happy to be involved with that. Got hardware to throw at it. Got some knowledge that we've learned.
Any insights worth sharing on the column based on what you've learned on your smashing?
You can throw a lot at EOSIO. Now, making it stay and validate and be a stable experience is a little different, but it's pretty. Kevin we brought him in on some questions we've had for some things about limits and whatever. You got to kind of stretch some of the limits, but it's an impressive code base to smash a lot of transactions in.
Yeah, we have Kevin leading up an initiative, but from the ENF to build out a open source performance harness to really do load testing and benchmarking and all that, make it formalized, make it open source so the other chains can use it, et cetera. But we think that's a really important thing. And that's why I kind of connected him up to you, Michael, as well, and saw that people with common interests might be able to share some interesting ideas.
Yeah, we're just now starting to spin that up and getting started on it, which is maybe what you saw. We're just at the beginning of that. But I obviously am interested in any of your findings there, and I'm following along closely on the Telos channel as well.
Yeah, exactly. I know you're definitely involved, but just wanted to throw it out there. So if it was more than just you, so excited to hear you're kind of leading that, and holla at your boy when you want to burn some stuff or throw some hardware at it. I got some pretty servers.
You certainly do, and we may take you up on that. Appreciate
it. We should take you up on that. Free servers. I'm all about free servers.
Oh, you should see. I got a 12th generation i9 just ripping the snot. I'm water cooled. I mean, we're overclocking it as much.
You keep reminding us. Swell down.
We'd love to burn that thing up.
I do, and Ross will attest. I mean, our problem is you get so fast to hardware, us as VPs actually have to start slowing down because there's some counter, measures to it. But anyway, that's our thing. So happy to do it. But glad to see an initiative and love to be a part of it.
Is there anything here to capture and share in the notes in the summary here? Do we want to mention this open source stress testing?
I like it. I don't know if it's enough to start announcing it, but I mean, it's public on the GitHub.
We're not looking for any feedback at this time. Nothing
it's
really.
It's okay to talk about it because Zach put it in the in a tweet. The date it was going to be ready is a little aggressive, but it's already been announced by the ENF that we're going to do a performance harness and load testing. So it's okay to talk about it. That we're funding that, and we're keenly interested in Michael's help, and Kevin. Kevin won't actually be the lead; a different OCI person will be the lead. But if Kevin will be involved in oversight of all of it as well. Very exciting project in my mind because we'll be able to really talk about benchmarks about EOSIO and load testing, and we'll make sure that we go forward with every release instead of sometimes possibly accidentally going backwards because we didn't have this type of, and we'll make all these results public.
Awesome. Did I capture that? ENF is working on open source performance harness and load test framework.
Yeah, all those things.
Cool. All right, it's in the notes. Okay, anything else? All right. Thank you, everybody. Have an awesome day, and we'll check in again next week.
Okay, everyone. Go EOS!
Go EOS!
Go EOS, man.
Go EOS.
Bye.